I'm Nikki and welcome to the Preppy Possum. Today I'm going to lead you step by step through a painting. Alright, so let's paint a Nautilus shell. So I'm going to start out by grabbing like a drawing brush. So I'm going to use like a number 4. I'll move this back just a little. And I'm probably going to put it on there with maybe like a light gray. And I'm going to skip down just a smidge from the top center, so just like less than an inch, and throw like a little dot, like a little placeholder. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the edges. I'm going to skip in about an inch or so and throw a little placeholder. And then once you have your dot from the top and your dots on the edges, then we're going to do a huge whoop like a rainbow. So you really want it to arch. So think like really arch. And just kind of keep it thin. It's just a guideline. We're going to tweak it. So you want like a big arch to your shell. And then we're going to go ahead and right off the right hand side, we're just going to kind of continue this little whoop like you're leaning down here towards the bottom. We'll make that arch a little bit more. And then just kind of continue it on and let it lean in towards the bottom center just a little bit. I would just stop short of the bottom by like a couple inches. And then once you have that, I'm going to let it lean back in like you're headed up here kind of towards the top left-hand corner. So you're going to let it lean in for about 5 inches or so, because we can always tweak that. And then over here now on the left-hand side, make sure I got that arch. Okay, we're just going to go ahead and continue that whoop. Whoops, I didn't mean to touch it. Continue it all the way back to like our little line that we did. I don't know why, for some reason at this point it kind of looks like a fortune cookie or something. Or I guess that would have 2 of those. Anyways, but once you have your big whoop, then just kind of curve it back in. We're going to like curve it up for a couple inches, and then we're just gonna whoop it back to the left for a couple inches. So that has like the first part of our shell. And then while we still have this color on our brush, let's go ahead and write off your little whoop in the middle. We're gonna like let it lean to the left a little bit, so it kind of is like a little diagonal that kind of curves up. And then we're just going to let it go over to the right, kind of like a little right-hand side of a rainbow. And then I would skip down here, skip up like 5 inches or so from the bottom of your shell and do a little whoop, kind of like a little right-hand side of a rainbow. Which you can always tweak these later to make them bigger or smaller. And then we're just going to let it droop and connect those two. So from your little rainbow up here, a little rainbow. And we're just going to do a droopy line and connect them. All right, so we have the first part of that. So let's go ahead and wipe off our extra and chunk that one in the water. And we're going to grab a huge brush. So like a 1-inch brush or whatever you have that's a big brush. And you can do your background whatever color, but I'm kind of going to use some seafoam and some blue and some white. Kind of a mainly seafoam and blue probably, since we have so much white in our shell. And I'm just gonna get all the big areas first. So kind of get all your corners. I would hit like all the big spots, and then once you get all the big spots, you could use this brush if you wanted to. So you could use a big brush, or you can swap out to a smaller brush. Either way, but I would just use the same color and go ahead and take it all the way up next to the line. So next to our little line that we started with. And just kind of live on the edge with it, because we'll come back and, you know, we can make our shell bigger if we need to. But I'm just going to take it all the way to the light gray. And just kind of do that all the way around. And don't worry if your shell looks a little wonky, a little wavy, because we're going to do a bunch to it, and at the end you can kind of smooth it out. So don't worry too much about that right now. Everybody's just probably going to be like a little bit bumpy right now. All right, so we have our background on there. And don't worry if it's streaky. You can come back and hit it again. And just wipe that one off and chunk it in the water. And let's grab probably like a number 6 is a good size brush. And dry it off. And we're gonna start by filling in like the dark part of our shell just to get a layer on there. So I'm gonna use like some dark gray and maybe even a little bit of purple with it. Dark gray, you can even have a tiny bit of black in your brush, and maybe some purple. And we're gonna fill in this whole area. Once again, I'm gonna try to hit all the big areas first and then kind of take it to the edge. Then you can see if you need to make it like bigger. And don't worry if this is streaky, because we can come back and throw another layer on it. Just kind of grab a lot and go for it. And even though we're going to come back and add some white to the edge, go ahead and kind of take it all the way and cover up that original line that we had. So at the bottom, kind of take it all the way to that original line. So we have a pretty good little layer. Trying to make sure we have enough on there. All right, so we got a layer on there. So let's go ahead and wipe that one off. And now we're gonna grab some really dark brown. Actually, let's start with the black. Let's grab a little bit of black. So that same brush, or you could use a smaller. And we're gonna grab a tiny bit of black, and we're gonna throw a little bit of black. Let's start like right here on the edge of that gray. And then we can kind of so once you have like a little bit of black right there on the top part, we're gonna do the same thing kind of underneath here. So just kind of right where that gray touches the white, we're gonna kind of follow it a little bit, and then we're just gonna do like a little backward C. And then once you have that, then we're just gonna let it kind of continue on up here. Let's just kind of bump it a little so it's not perfect. Let it be a little bumpy. And then we'll just kind of take it near our black right here too. And don't worry, you can always thin this up if it gets a little cray-cray. But I think that's a good start to our black. And then wipe it off just a little. You don't have to rinse it out because you can still have a little black in your brush. And we're gonna grab some dark brown with it. So some dark brown and black. And now we're gonna throw like our little pieces that make it look like a Nautilus shell. So I might start up here at the top, and you want them to be like a little bit bigger towards the edge of the shell, and then they get a little bit smaller as it comes out. And you might want to switch, I don't know what size brush y'all are using, but you might want to use like a number 4 or smaller, just so you can get really little. I might swap out and use that too in a second, but kind of keep them thicker towards the edges. So I'm going to add like a couple up here like this. I might even grab like a little milk chocolate with it so it's not getting too dark on me. But don't worry about the edges of your little lines too much, because we're going to come back in here and paint white. So we can always trim them up and make them look a little bit better. So now we have a couple at the top. Let's go ahead and skip back down here, and we're going to throw some. We're going to throw one like right next to our black. And the same thing, you want it to be like a little bit bigger towards the edges, because that's going to give the effect that it's like round. Going to help with that perspective. And then you want to skip a little smidge, and we're going to throw like a few smaller ones down here. You can have a couple that like touch the black. And I might add a little bit to the bottom, like if your shell, whenever you painted your background, if you like cut it off a little bit, like me, you might want to add a little bit to it. And don't worry if you end up with more of these or less of these, it doesn't matter. But the trick is to just make sure you get it like a little bit thicker at the bottom, because that's what's gonna kind of curve it around for you. And then we'll just keep on doing that. Even start throwing like a few that get a tad bit bigger. Like on the bottom, they kind of look pretty big. But I wouldn't worry about like your color too much, because we'll come back and add lights and darks to it once it dries. Maybe like a little short one in here too. I know it's a lot of swirls, but that's what makes it look good. See, let's get back up maybe to the top and add a couple more up there, and then we'll kind of let them meet. Probably should have swapped out to a smaller brush to do this part, but that's okay. We're going to eat away at it. Because I'm going to throw some long pieces and then just kind of let them fan out at the edge, because we'll add some more white and tan to them here in a little bit. Looks a little crazy right now, like a little lion tail or something. All right, now let's add like another little one. I say little, but it's kind of thick where it touches the edge. And then let's add like a few more that kind of, I might go ahead and add a little bit of brown to the edge right here, and then I can just kind of work off of that. Just gonna add like a few more, kind of just like that, that curve in. I think I can fit one more right here, but don't worry if y'all end up with more or less. So we can always thin a few of these up too whenever we're adding our white. But that kind of gets us a first little layer on our brown. So let's wipe that one off, chunk it in the water, and let's let it dry for just a second. Now it's a little bit more dry, not completely dry, but let's grab like a number 6 again. I'm trying to find like a somewhat clean number 6 and some bright white. So number 6 and some white, and we're gonna thicken up kind of all the white parts, but I would start with like your big parts first. So throw some through like all the big areas and like put a bunch on there. I think it looks good to have a lot. So I would hit like all over here where you have that big section, kind of throw a bunch through that. And then anywhere where you have big areas, kind of hit those, and then we'll get up next to everything. I'll go ahead and put some white in here too, even though we're going to add some blue and stuff, but just to get some paint on there. But I think we got a lot of our big spaces, so now we're going to go ahead and like get up next to everything, and this is where you can thin a few things down. Definitely thin up the edge of our little tails up here. And I might have to swap to a little bit smaller brush to get in between everything. I might do that. I'm going to swap out to like a number 4. That way I can get up close to everything. But before I swap out, I'm going to go ahead and use like a number 6 that I still have and add a little bit of light down here. So I'm going to add like the light gray and dark gray together. And I'm just going to throw a little line that kind of leans up right here through the bottom, and then just fill in all below there. That way we'll have a little bit of a, but just kind of grab a bunch of paint and go for it. And it's all right if like some of your dark is still wet underneath, that's fine. All right. So we have the first part of that. Let's just wipe that one off and chunk it in the water. And we're gonna grab like a smaller brush, so like a number 4 and some more bright white. And now we can get like all of the white parts that were kind of tiny. So just kind of load your brush, and we're gonna fill in all in between there. And then here in a second, we'll add some other colors with this same size. But definitely like up here where I got like a little too close together, you can just kind of eat away at it. Just kind of load your brush and wiggle it, and you can thin those up a little. All right, I think we got most of the white, probably not all of it, but we can come back and I'll get these, and then we'll start adding some other colors. Okay, so we have a pretty good start. I keep saying I'm going to stop doing the white, but I keep seeing more white. All right, we have a pretty good start to our white on there. So now let's grab a little bit of like a tan, maybe even a little bit of caramel. You can still have some white on your brush. And we're gonna throw some of that in between kind of our brown, just for the first, like inch and a half. We're gonna streak a little bit of that just towards the edges, and that's gonna kind of help it look round too, because it would be darker through the sides. So we're gonna throw, and don't worry if like your white's a little wet and it kind of mixes in, that's fine. And just kind of come up with your stroke, that way it'll end like not a perfect line down here. You kind of want it to streak in at different lengths. And we're just going to keep doing that through all of our little sections. And even where it doesn't come all the way to the edge, I would still throw like a little bit. And don't worry about your edge over here. We'll come back and smooth it out. But yeah, just a little bit of tan and caramel. And then we'll do that up here too, in between them. All right, and then while we still have that color on there, I'll throw a little bit of that tan and caramel like through your little pieces that hang out here, and maybe even a little bit towards the middle. Just to have a little bit of color in there. All right, so we have a good start to that. Now let's grab some dark brown with a little bit of black. So the same size brush, like a number 4, and you want dark brown with a smidge of black. And we're just gonna darken them up towards the outside edges. So just that first like inch and a half, we're gonna throw a little bit of the dark brown and black. So just kind of more towards the outside because you want it darker. Just how we added the tan on the outside, same kind of thing with this. But just keep adding like a little bit of dark all towards your edges. And then we'll grab, you don't have to wipe it out really, grab more of that like milk chocolate brown. So you can still have some dark on there. And now we'll kind of brighten up the rest of our little streaks. It just kind of thickens them up and it kind of makes them a little bit lighter. So kind of through all of those little brown parts, we're just going to kind of go over the top part of them. this is just kind of thickening up what we already had on there. Just kind of making it lighter too, since we're using like a little bit of milk chocolate color with it. Then I might go over these, our little pieces, just try not to get them too big. All right, so that got that thickened up. While you have like those colors on your brush, you might want to smooth out your edge. Like you could do it with a background color too, but I like to take like a little bit of those browns and just kind of smooth it out. Just with like a thin little bit. You don't want your shell to look broken. And then you can even kind of curl it into the middle part with that color too. Hopefully that smoothed it out a little. We can come back with background color and smooth it more if we need to. Let's add like a little bit up here to the top. In case we need to smooth that out a little. All right. Now we got our edges looking a tiny bit better. Let's go ahead and while we have that same brush, just kind of wipe it off. And we're gonna grab some dark gray and like a pool blue kind of color. So like a sky blue or darker than a sky blue, kind of like a pool blue and a gray, and skip to the middle. And we're just gonna do like another little backwards C. And we're just gonna fill in that whole little section. So we have a little bit more dark in the middle. And then while you still have that color on your brush, let's go ahead and add just a tiny bit next to our black right there that just kind of goes right into that little section. So you can have a little bit that kind of, it goes with your swirl. And then we can come back and make sure we got that thickened up. All right, so we have that part. Now let's wipe off our extra. Now let's grab a little bit more black and throw a tiny bit more black through like our little swirl part right here, just in case it was streaky, just to thicken it up. You want it to have like really dark darks and really light lights, and that's gonna be what helps it pop. So we'll kind of thicken that part up again. And then I'm gonna do the same thing through part of our little middle part right here, just to make sure it has like a good line. So use a lot of paint on your brush and then just be real light with it. And then if you needed to go over your black again, which I might add just a tiny bit to it, to our little swirl part, you could add just a little bit. I just don't want to get it too thick. I want to make sure you can see some of that blue-gray. All right, I think we kind of smooth that out. So let's wipe that one off and chunk it in the water. And let's use a teeny tiny and dry it off. So like a number 1. And dry it off, and we're gonna grab some bright white. And now we're gonna throw a thin little line of white right here at the bottom of our shell. So you can even do it like kind of right on top of that gray. You just want a thin little piece. And then we'll take it all the way up to the white right here. So just kind of curve it around the bottom and take it all the way up to that white. And then I would even take a little white and light gray, and if you want to add like a little glare right there. And now I would use that same teeny tiny and grab some black. We're going to throw just a teeny bit of black right above part of that white, like a little glare right there. And don't worry, if you get too thick, you can always come back and thin it down. I might thin it down a little. And then I'm going to throw a little bit of black right under my white up here. Same thing, just kind of go for it, and then we can always thin it up if we need to. Right kind of where the white touches the gray, just right on your gray. And then don't worry like what that line looks like, because we're going to come back and streak it real quick. Uh-oh, got a little bit of black right there. So grab like a number 6 or so again, and a little bit more of that dark gray and purple. And now you can kind of like streak it. I didn't want to get too dark up here. Into the edge of that black. And we can kind of, if the black line got crazy, this is where you can thin it up. And then we'll just, while we have the gray and purple on our brush, we'll kind of throw another layer, some streaks through that dark part again, just in case it was too thin. So now let's just take our number 1 and we'll go ahead and sign it. And now we have the Nautilus shell. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Be sure to check us out. We're on Cox Street in Asheboro. And be sure to check out our website, www.thepreppypossum.com.